All right, let's jump right in. In a country like Germany, how should public media be funded? Is it a vital service that everyone chips in for, or has it become something more like a mandatory tax? The source material we're digging into today gets right to the heart of this, exploring Germany's pretty controversial mandatory media fee. And this is the number right at the center of it all, 18 euros and 36 cents. According to our source, that's the mandatory fee every single month that every single household in Germany has to pay for public broadcasting. And yeah, that's whether they use it or not. And that's really the big question the source material poses, isn't it? I mean, with Netflix, YouTube, and a million other options at our fingertips, what is the system actually providing for that mandatory fee? Is it still justified? So let's unpack the arguments laid out in the text. Okay, first things first, the source starts by breaking down the fee itself, what it is, how they define it, and, maybe most importantly, how it's enforced. It's officially called the Rundfunkbeitrag, which translates to broadcast contribution fee, but the source makes it really clear. This is not an optional contribution. It's levied on every household to fund the big public broadcasters, and it's a legal requirement, not a subscription you can just cancel. So, this is where the source lays out its main problems with the whole setup. First, it's slapped on every single household. It doesn't matter if you even own a TV or a radio, your payment has zero to do with whether you actually watch or listen to any of their content. And if you decide not to pay, well, the source points out that the consequences can be pretty severe, with some serious financial penalties. And wow, this quote from the text really drives its perspective home, doesn't it? It frames the whole thing not as a public service, but as a coercive system where not paying up could lead to what it calls state-backed financial ruin. Pretty strong words. So where is all this money going? Well, the next part of the source's argument dives into claims of financial mismanagement and what it describes as a system just full of waste. And we are talking about a staggering amount of money here. This mandatory fee brings in an annual budget of over 8 billion euros. The source argues that because this funding is basically guaranteed by law, there's just no real-world pressure to be efficient or careful with the money. And the text points to some very public scandals as Exhibit A, zeroing in on the case involving Patricia Schlesinger, a former director at RBB, where there were all these allegations of misusing funds and lavish spending. It also calls out the commission that sets the fee, the KEF, saying the process is totally opaque. The bottom line, according to the source, is that the system just isn't built to be financially responsible. Now, beyond just the money, the source also takes a hard look at the actual content being produced, raising some big questions about the political neutrality and the editorial choices of these broadcasters. And it really doesn't hold back with its language. The text actually calls the media system funded by this fee a hysteria machine. It argues that its job has shifted from simply informing people to making the news as emotional and dramatic as possible. So what's the evidence for this, according to the source? Well, it points to the fact that representatives from political parties actually sit on the broadcasting councils, which, makes you wonder about independence. The text claims narratives get hyped up and that during the pandemic it came off as an establishment echo chamber. All this, the source says, has led to a measurable long-term drop in public trust. Which brings us to the source's final judgment on the current system. It's not just a little flawed. The text argues the whole model is ethically bankrupt and structurally broken. I mean, that's about as damning a verdict as you can get. But it doesn't just leave it there. And here's the pivot. After spending all this time breaking down the problem, the source completely shifts gears to present what it sees as the only real solution, a radical move away from centralization altogether. So this is the logical next question, right? If you're going to say this huge, centralized, compulsory system is broken, what are you supposed to replace it with? What's the alternative? And the source offers up a very specific answer, a platform called Web4.community, created by a company called Linkspreed. The text presents this thing not just as another option, but as a direct antidote to the problems of centralized, state-influenced media. Okay, so what exactly is this platform? And how does it claim to fix these massive systemic problems? Let's get into the nuts and bolts. This chart does a great job of showing the two worlds side by side, according to the source. You've got the compulsory fee on one side versus voluntary microfunding on the other. You've got state-linked councils making decisions versus individual users and communities having total sovereignty. And it contrasts what it calls a top-down narrative with unfiltered reality.
It's really a vision of two totally opposite philosophies. The whole approach is built on a few core ideas. It uses something called social networks as a service, or SNaaS. The big takeaway is that users keep total control over their own data and content. AI is used to help connect people into smaller, more relevant communities. And here's a big one. There are no ads. The entire model runs on direct support from its users.
And this final quote from the source really just wraps up its entire thesis in a nutshell. It's drawing a clear line in the sand. The old way of doing things, mandatory funding, central control, is over. And the future, it argues, is all about voluntary, user-controlled, decentralized systems. So, this is the big provocative thought the source material leaves us chewing on. It frames this whole debate as a fundamental choice. And it's not just about a few in Germany. It's about the future of how we all create, consume, and fund media all over the world. Is it really a battle between total central control on one side and complete decentralization on the other? According to this text, that's the big question we all need to be thinking about.